segment, I'm actually going to show you the various stitch programs that are available on this 4 DLB Serger. So the first one that I've got set up for you is the 4-thread serging, and I'm going to take a little piece of our monkey fabric and I am going to put it together, and I'm going to put it underneath the foot, and I'm just going to line the fabric up a little here, and I am now going to stitch along my seam. Now, I did not have a piece of stay tape attached to this fabric, and I think you can see what I mean. Do you see how it waves a little? Whereas when we used the stay tape on this seam, it did not wave at all. So that is a really good example of how stay tape is very successful. Here is a sheet of information that I've got about 4-thread serging. Here I've used a fleece fabric, and here too, this is the top of it and the bottom of it, the back of it. And here you can see quite clearly what I was referring to earlier about threading up the machine with yellow and blue in the needles and red in the upper looper and green that's showing the back in the lower looper. And I also talked earlier about the order of threading, starting with the upper looper, then the lower looper, and then moving to the needles. I don't think it really makes a huge amount of difference whether you thread the left or the right needle first, but on this serger you've got a little thread guide just above the needles, and it seems more logical to me to thread the right needle first because the thread goes to the inside of that thread guide. Just to show you that you can do the same thing on a piece of denim. That's a fairly stiff piece of denim. And this here is a piece of white quilting cotton that has been serged together front and back. Same thing over there, and this is the back, showing the back of the serging. Okay, so that is 4-thread. We also can do 3-thread, and what we need to do with 3-thread is we remove one of the needles. So with the 3-thread, we are now going to go and get that small little screwdriver that I showed you earlier, and we are going to take the left needle out. That is the top screw, and I think I'm just going to raise this up so it gives me a little bit of extra space there. So I'm just going to cut the thread over there and put my needle on the table. And then when you are coming to do a 3-thread, and I'm just going to get a piece of knit fabric here. This is a sweatshirt fabric, or a golf, it was actually a golf shirt of my husband's that he threw out, and I thought, okay, that's great fabric for testing out things. And I'm just going to cut this little piece of thread here. Right, so when we are doing 3-thread, we merely take the left needle out, and this gives you regular serging, but with one needle thread less. And that is what your 3-thread serging is going to look like, and I have it stitched out for you on this chart. Over here I have some fabric with a little bit of batting and a piece of backing, and it's showing you it's ended it off nicely there. And I like to use this quite often when I am quilting. So I neaten all the way around the edge of my quilt with a 3-thread serge, and then I add my binding afterwards, and that keeps everything together on the edge of the quilt. It's really good. This is just 2 pieces of quilting cotton with the 3-thread. This is a knit fabric. The pink is a knit fabric, and then that's just the white fabric again. Okay, I want to show you now how we set up for a 3-thread narrow. And with that one, what we're going to do is we're going to take the right needle out, because you are going to use the left needle. So let's put the left needle back into the machine and tighten up that little screw. And then remember, I said to you it's best to just tighten the screw a little in case it pops out. It's very small. I wouldn't like to be grubbing around on the floor looking for it. And now we are also still doing 3-thread. Oops, we need to thread the needle. We won't get very far if we don't thread the needle. So I'm going to bring this thread down. In fact, what we need this time now is our needle for the thread for the left needle, which is this one here. And so I am going to use my tweezers. I find tweezers a lot easier and better than trying to fuss with your fingers. And there we go. I've got, oh, it's hooking on the end of this fabric here. Let's try that again. There we go. And my needle is threaded. And I'm going to pop that thread through to the back. And now what we're going to do is we are going to be doing a 3-thread wide. Because I have the left needle in, it's further away from the edge of the fabric. And so what it does is it gives me a wider seam, and that's known as 3-thread wide. Now, well, what's the difference between 4-thread serging and 3-thread serging? Well, if you think about it, with 4-thread serging, I've got 2 needles and 2 threads in there. Whereas when I'm doing 3-thread, I've removed the 1, so you don't have as much thread build up, which means your seam is not going to be as bulky. And so when I'm already going to put binding on the edge of my quilt, I don't need that to be a very heavy, thick edge. And so, okay, we're going to cover the rolled hem now. This is a very popular stitch program on a serger because it's got so many applications, and it's a really, really good finish on many projects, which we'll talk about in a bit of time. But let's set up the serger for rolled hem. We have the 1 needle in the machine. The left needle has already been taken out, so all we have in the machine right now is the right needle. And I'm opening the doors of the serger because the first thing I need to do is lower my blade, and then this little button here is sitting next to an S, which is probably not visible on the video, but it says S there and R at the bottom. So in order to move this little button back, what we're doing with that is we are moving this stitch finger over here out of the way so that we can form a very narrow rolled hem. So what we do is we press this knob in and pull the stitch finger back to R. So if I do that again, you can see there's the stitch finger, and now I'm pulling it back. And then I do need to remember to raise my blade again, because I do want to be cutting the edge of the fabric as I sew. Okay, so that's the blade and the rolled hem setting, but we also need on the side of the machine to adjust our stitch length to R, or you can, with certain fabrics, you can make it a little shorter than R. You could make it 1, which gives it a stitch length of 1. The other thing we need to do is we need to make sure that our tension on our lower looper is up high, and I'm going to put it up at 8. And the reason for this is as follows. And I have a set of samples here that I want to show you. And what a rolled hem is it's very narrow, and you get that nice narrow hem because we removed the stitch finger, so it's no longer there for the stitches to be forming across the stitch finger. So it gives us this very narrow sealed edge on whatever it is we're making. This is really helpful for things like tablecloths, napkins, skirts, the edges of cuffs, necklines, lingerie. Oh, it's got so many uses, scarves, that sort of thing. So let me explain what's happening with the rolled hem. If you look here, you may see if I move it to get the correct focus, you have got a needle thread along there. You might just make that out. The red stitching on the edge of the black fabric is my upper looper thread. Remember, we've just got 3 threads, 1 needle, and the upper and the lower looper. And if I flip this over to the back of the red, you'll be able to see that I actually have red stitching coming over to the back as well. That is actually my upper looper thread, which has been pulled around and to the back by that high tension on the upper looper. We switched it up to 8. And the lower looper thread is actually there, but it's hardly visible because it's been pulled in so tight with that high tension. And then we have a bunch of different samples along here. This is a linen, and then we have a polyester fabric there. So is the black polyester. This is a kind of a nylon netting. This one is a chiffon, and this one is an organza. And rolled hem works really well on softer, thinner fabrics. It also works on quilting cotton. There is a rolled hem on the edge of a piece of quilting cotton. And if you were to say to yourself, well, you know what, I want to do a rolled hem on some denim. Well, you know, you could give it a try, but denim, certainly a denim as thick as this, is pretty thick. So to get it to turn over and roll on the edge is not going to be that easy to do. As I say, you can try it, but it's not going to roll easily. What I want to do now is show you at the machine how you do the rolled hem, and I've got a little piece of polyester fabric. It's got a sort of crinkle to it. I think it would be quite pretty as a blouse or a scarf, and if we were to do a rolled hem along the edge of that for a scarf, it would be very suitable. All right, so I'm going to come and put my fabric under the foot, and I've got my machine all set up, and now away I am going to go with my rolled hem. And I'm going to go all the way down to the end of this little piece of fabric, and then chain off at the back and pull my thread out the machine, and there we have a beautiful rolled hem. I could have made the stitching a little closer. I have it set on R. I could have taken it down to 1, and then those stitches would have been a little closer together. I'm also going to show you something else, a little sample here. This is a nightgown, a summer nightgown, and you're not going to be able to see the whole of it, but it has a flounce hem at the hemline, and what it has been stitched on the bottom of that hem, it wasn't turned up and to form a hem. There was just a rolled hem edge done along the edge, and what was used here was a thread in the upper looper called a woolly nylon or a woolly poly. Now that is a slightly stretchy thread. We have a thread in Madeira. We talked earlier about Madeira Aero Lock, which is our serger thread. We have another thread called Aero Flock, and this is exactly the thread I'm talking about now. It's kind of fluffy and it is stretchy, and as it goes through the needle and sews down onto the fabric, it stretches. But then as soon as it's stitched already onto the fabric, it relaxes and then pluffs out or fills out, and it gives a very nice edge to your garment or your napkin or your tablecloth, whatever it is that you're stitching with that. And that gives you good coverage over the raw edge. Okay, I want to just take a moment to show you 2 other things. The first one is a handkerchief skirt that was made with a rather pretty knit fabric, and it's got that sort of pointy handkerchief skirt at the bottom, and I did not want to turn the fabric up and form a hem, because I didn't want there to be bulk at the bottom. I wanted this to be a very drapey, light and airy kind of skirt. And so I felt that a rolled hem along the edge of this was really the best way to go. And so that is what I did all the way around the edge of this handkerchief skirt. And then I also have another skirt, which actually started out life. It's this really pretty fabric, jade and purple fabric. It started out life as a dress, but the cleavage on the dress was a little too risque for me. So what I did was I cut the top of the dress off and put a wide elastic around the waist, and then along the bottom of the hem I used again a floss or a Aeroflock type thread in black, and I did a rolled hem along the edge of the skirt. And the reason again for that was that I wanted it to drape nice and light and not have bulk around the hemline. Now I have got a number of scarves here that I don't think are going to show all that well on the video, because there really isn't an awful lot of space to stand back and show it to you. But this is a very pretty polyester chiffon fabric that I bought when I was in London visiting my son and grandson. And it was really quite expensive in pounds, but it was just so pretty I had to have it. And I turned that into an infinity scarf when I came home. And an infinity scarf is a really nice project to make for a serger. This fabric here is also a polyester chiffon that I also bought on that same trip to London. And again, it also makes a very pretty infinity scarf. This fabric, same kind of fabric. This one has got pretty little shoes on it. And again, I made it into a scarf. In fact, I have so many scarves. I have them in one of those hanging things with pockets that hang over the back of a door so that I can access my scarves easily. Now, I could go into details now on this video and tell you how to make an infinity scarf, but I think what I would rather do is refer you to our Janome Canada Pinterest board. If you go to Pinterest and look for Janome Canada, we've made a special Pinterest board just for the Four DLB. So just scroll down our boards until you find that Pinterest board. And on that Pinterest board, I have pinned a number of very easy, quick and easy projects to do with a serger. And one of those is the infinity scarf, and it will give you exact instructions of how to make the scarf with your serger. I can make an infinity scarf, and I am not lying. I can make an infinity scarf in less than 15 minutes, probably closer to 10 minutes. It really is a very, very quick little project to do. And it's also a way of using up scraps of fabric, because it doesn't really use an awful lot of fabric for the scarf. So as I say, I will put those instructions on the Pinterest board together with other quick and easy projects that you can access and use on your Four DLB serger. Now, we've come to the end of what I wanted to tell you, but before I sign off, I just wanted to mention again that we, of course, have this YouTube channel, the Janome Life YouTube channel, where I've just mentioned the Pinterest board. We also have the Janome Life blog, where there's lots of information about sergers. So if you were to put in rolled hems, up would come every post that we've done with serger rolled hems. We also have a Janome Canada Instagram page and a Janome Canada Facebook page. And on virtually all of those forums, you can send queries, make comments, make suggestions, and we will get back to you and answer your queries. So you're more than welcome. If you hit a little bit of a roadblock, or you've got a query and you're not quite sure what your next step will be with your serger, please let us know and we'll do everything we can to help you. So I do hope that you found these videos for the 4 DLB very useful. Please do use your manual and your instructional DVD together with that, as well as all the lovely projects on Pinterest. So thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate your time, and I do hope that you have a lot of fun with your serger. Thank you.